Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
This song then.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. You have tuned into Dr. Judy WTF. I am your host, Walt Lusk, and of course, WTF is What the Freud. For those of you that are new, and just for starters, this is a call-in show, and if you are in the United States, you can call in and get on the couch with Dr. Judy with your emotional ouch at area code 323-843-2826. And if you're international, you can actually call us on Skype at UBN, that's for Universal Broadcasting Network, UBN Radio number 2. And today we are going to be continuing our series on people-pleasing and the fact that the disease to please. And we're going to talk a lot today, a little bit about people-pleasing and narcissists, and then how to become less of a people-pleaser.
And excuse me, Walt, I just want to make sure that the right camera's on.
Point to this one.
Okay.
That's their camera.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then there's this big rope going across it.
That's not going to be a challenge.
Okay, fine.
So we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. It's
I don't
not
want
in
to
the, not in
disappoint
there.
anybody.
Yeah, we're here in studio and always having a fun time with lights and wires.
Of course.
It's a live show, folks. So, Judy, you know that people-pleasings really do pay a very huge price for being a people-pleaser. Mm-hmm. And, you know, unfortunately, becoming a people-pleaser sets us on a path for becoming alienated from our inner true self.
Yes.
The underlying belief is that who we are isn't lovable. Instead, we idolize being loved as a means of being to self-worth and happiness to the point that we crave it. Our need to be accepted, understood, needed, and loved causes us to be complacent and self-efficating. We conclude, if you love me, then I am lovable. You comes to mean just about everyone, including the people incapable of loving us. And we're going to talk about that in a minute.
So I want to source this back to cause, which is how the mind map system works. And so if you'd be so kind as to put the mind map system up there, we can trace it to how this horrendous dynamic kicks into place and how it starts to travel down into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, and ultimately repeat itself and draw people in, like the connection between the people pleaser and the narcissist, and how they make a wonderful duo. And so, is that mind map up?
It is.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so for those of you who are familiar with the mind map, you know that the mind map is a pathway from the wounds of childhood, through deconstructing them, through a paradigm shift into healing. And so when we look at the top row, the top third of the mind map, we could see that panel 1 represents the wounds of childhood, panel 2 the reaction to those wounds, and panel 3 the encoding of those wounds into a what we call a negative core belief. Right. So in the case of people-pleasing, what happens is that very soon the infant realizes that it's not about him or her. It's really not. It's about pleasing mom. And instead of the infant being regulated by mother, the infant soon realizes that it's the responsibility of the infant, or eventually child, and young person to regulate the feelings of the mother, and not vice versa. So the people-pleasing pattern goes into effect, and so instead of the person growing, they develop what many people in the profession refer to as a false self. And a false self is exactly what you're talking about, Walt. There's an inauthentic piece of that self that is aimed to please. So rather than concentrate on the growth of the human being, rather than concentrate on manifesting the blueprint that the person was meant to manifest, they're now kind of twisting around the configuration of the parents in order to figure out how to please them so that they can ultimately be loved. But as you know, they never get to the love part.
No.
Because
and unfortunately, the love they're expecting is kind of conditional.
Right.
And if those conditions change, well, then the whole shebang gets kind of tossed.
Correct. And so we all know that as infants, there's nothing that we really need to do to be loved. It's just that we're born and we're supposed to be born into the state of unconditional love. And so when the dynamics are set up so that it's conditional, it really leaves one with what we refer to as the hole in the soul. So oftentimes people pleasers have negative core beliefs such as I'm only worth something if I'm doing something, or I'm only worth as much as I do, or I'm only worth as much as I make, or all kinds of things like that. And so you could see that this is a kind of a building of a false self because the authenticity of that person is overshadowed by their need to please the other.
And I've got some great examples of that. As I mentioned last week, we're going to talk about a little bit about reasons why narcissists absolutely love people pleasing. And then we're going to get into some solutions. The strong attraction between narcissists and people pleasers is no accident. There is a magnetic pull between the two that is very difficult to break, each meeting a deep need of each other. This is not the fault of one or the other. It's just an unhealthy union that breeds dysfunction.
Right.
Narcissists demand to be fed, and people pleasers are the best source. Narcissists internally crave approval from others, and they need constant daily supply. We've talked about the narcissistic supply. And this endorsement is necessary to secure their superior status over others. Without it, they become intensely angry. And what better way to get that from than a people pleaser?
And the reason we're doing part 3 on people pleasing is because it's so serious of a dynamic that's killing people out there, literally, because they're bleeding out.
Outrageous.
And the letters that I'm receiving, and I want to address a few of the themes that are going on. The amount of people who are calling me because they're in a psychological prison, so to speak, based on being raised by narcissistic parents. And we had a few people write in, I think one in particular, who kept insisting that narcissism is a genetic kind of a disorder, and that there was a lack of, I think, ability to connect the fact that childhood wounds, short of organic causes, and we are not here to deny organic causes because there are organic causes. If there are brain tumors growing, or there's truly a chemical imbalance due to whatever causes. And by the way, don't forget that the mind and the body are interconnected. So which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Sometimes it's
evolution
hard to know.
Or environment. Correct.
And they both interact with each other. I think Dr. Drew Pinsky had a great way of explaining it. He said that genetics set up the whole stage, and then the environment pulls the trigger. So it's always a case of nature-nurture. But in the case of childhood injuries, it's always the case that elements of neglect, elements of physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, and also smothering can definitely affect the human psyche, can definitely reroute the neural pathways so that the mental health of the person is affected. And then that person's blueprint therefore infects the next generation. So this is multi-generational.
Correct. It certainly is.
Right.
I have a friend who's admitting they're borderline, and they're just now beginning in their early 50s to stand up to mom, and there's a physiological reaction to it. And
Yes.
so it's been ingrained and trained since practically before they could walk and talk.
Yeah, I had a case. I'm not going to divulge, obviously, any confidentiality, but it was a case of a patient who had to literally cut off his family because he was done people pleasing, and there was no way that he was able to please. And the dynamics of the family got so, I would just say, it got so cancerous for him that he would have rather have died than interact with his family of origin. So he literally had to pull out and divorce his family. And so now he's going through the process of reestablishing himself. Very, very painful. But what happens is that we do keep psychological score, and we do please, and as a result of pleasing, we bleed out. And sometimes there comes a backlash where the person says, well, you know, I've done this for you, and then where's my turn?
Where's the payoff?
That's where the passive aggressive rears its ugly head.
Well, the one analogy that you've given regarding narcissists, since we're on the subject, that I really think is amazing is narcissists are like one gigantic glass that has a huge crack and a hole in it. And you can pour the whole world into this gigantic glass, and it's never, ever, ever going to be full, and they're never, ever, ever going to be satisfied.
So on both ends, I'm just using these two extremes as examples, but the narcissist never is pleased. The people pleaser can never do enough. So they make a great duo. But again, watch out for the passive aggressive, because it doesn't just end there. Okay, give, and where's my paycheck? Where's my reward? And then when it's not there, they can actually go into narcissistic. The pleaser can go into narcissistic rage themselves. So, think dynamics, because again, it's not these neat little labels: narcissist, borderline, people pleaser. This is a whole system at work here, and the way that the system functions is what we're studying, so that we can get people off this horrendous merry-go-round and morph them out into healing, which means literally when we morph into healing, we then take responsibility for part 2 of our lives, because we're not really the cause of part 1 of our lives, because that stuff is unconscious. That's when we were babies. That's when we were blueprinted. That's when we were told the lies and the horrible messages that we were told. But by part 2, when we start to realize what we're involved in, then we can choose. We could choose to bow out. We could choose to
and as you say,
new boundaries.
Childhood is a hostage situation.
Your
and
favorite
that's absolutely
line,
true.
Walt. That's
and
right.
Getting back to narcissism here, people pleasers and what you've just stated. People pleasers like to impress others, offer support, and feel needed by others in order to validate their self-worth, as we said.
Right.
They seek acceptance and belonging from others, which narcissists are willing to supply as long as things are done their way. Narcissists can be very protective of people pleasers because they don't want their source of their esteem to disappear.
Correct.
So people pleasers need to feel as though they belong to someone who better than a narcissist who appears larger than life. And they gain a sense of control and security. The ultimate in boosting confidence for people pleasers is to gain approval from a hard-to-please person such as a narcissist. They just can't get about anyone else. Naturally, the narcissist loves the attention and it feeds their ego, but the people pleasers are happy because their ego is being fed and they're happy, and just as a match made in heaven, right?
And I want to get to that, talk about that a little bit more, Walt, because the prize is to win. And the prize is to win the unconditional love of the narcissist, which is usually the parent, okay? And so that's why they enter into these dynamics with other people, because they're doing a WTF, a what the Freud. They're repeating the pattern. So they enter into this dynamics with a girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, friend, whatever. And the repeat pattern is really aimed at capturing the love that they never got in their family of origin. So this is round 2. Okay, so you could see that they're not really dealing with the cause of the problem. They're now moving forward in their life, and now they're trying to solve the unsolvable with person number 2. And it never works.
The hole in the soul.
Right. The person number 2 also doesn't comply, just like person number 1, which is the family of origin member, doesn't comply, and neither does person number 2. So there it goes again. The whole dynamics repeats itself.
Well, actually, people pleasers see narcissists through rose-colored glasses, which is kind of what you might be saying, and they ignore any distasteful characteristics. So they try and find the good and ignore the bad, right? Mm-hmm. Narcissists view of self because this validates the narcissist's view of self because they don't see their own faults. People pleasers are willing to look past the negative aspects of narcissism in exchange for their acceptance. So there you go. And then lastly, narcissists love to rescue others because they love to be the hero. So this feeds their belief that they are better, stronger, and more powerful than others. People pleasers often take this too much and as a result need someone to come alongside and clean up their mess. Because people pleasers show extreme levels of guidance for help, the narcissist is always willing to give it.
And I was just talking to a patient today who talked about the overvaluing and the devaluing. So it would go something like, do we have a caller?
We got a call.
Oh, great. Okay.
Hi, thanks for calling. You are on the couch with Dr. Judy and Walt.
Hi, this is Sheila. I wanted to call in and
Hey, Sheila.
talk tonight. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
I'm listening to the show. I don't think we have a good connection, do we?
Well, we'll take it. We'll see what we can do. Hard lines are preferable, but you sound so far so good.
I can hear you.
Good.
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Judy.
Hi, Sheila.
And well, I just want to thank you guys for everything you guys are doing. I wanted to call in the show tonight and let you guys know and everybody know that I have borderline personality disorder and have had it for, well, been aware of it since I was 43, about 15 years now.
Okay.
And I want people to know that I'm using your mind map system. And I am so excited about it because for 15 years I have begged for therapy, tried to find help, knew something was wrong, but didn't really know what.
Okay.
And so when I found this show and then started researching it and using your mind map, I can say that I'm at panel number, with my glasses on here, I was just looking at that again. I'm at panel number, I think, paradigm shift, but I'm a little bit confused about that.
Okay, that's panel number 7, the paradigm shift.
Yes.
Wow, you've really raced through the book.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's pretty fast.
Let me take the opportunity to thank you so much. I read your letter. It touched me so much, and I know how passionate you are to get the word out there, as I am, and Walt is, and we are. And I want to clarify some things. So I just, first of all, being that the show's about people pleasers, let's talk a little bit about BPD, borderline personality disorder, what that looks like, what that feels like, and how that works in terms of people pleasing, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
Oh, no, that's fine. And that's kind of where I'm at is I just realized after all these years I do nothing but people please my narcissistic mother.
Okay. So, we were just talking a minute ago about how people replicate the blueprint, and they do WTF, which I call the what the Freud. And so then you'll choose another person to do the whole dance with. And so have you found that to be obviously so for yourself? Yes?
Absolutely. I've had 2 marriages, and both of them were just exactly like my mother. I didn't realize that until later on, but the same exact narcissistic personality, and me listening to you tonight playing the role of the pleaser, and it's a no-win. It just doesn't work.
So no-win.
One of them I was lucky to get out alive because he was so narcissistic and controlling. And then, it's a horrible thing when you're not aware of what's going on.
Right. And so within the borderline structure, as you know personally, there's a lot of lack of impulse control, correct?
Yeah.
And so what happens, I just want you to describe what happens when you please, 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 and then you're waiting for the paycheck and it never comes. What happens? Do you just lay down and die? Do you then flip into the rage? Just
Yeah,
kind
please tell us.
Yeah.
Personally, I get suicidal. I realize
Wow.
that
Okay.
I was going to deep depression and suicidal because of the rejection.
Okay.
So my rejection doesn't make me rage. When I feel rejected by my mother or father, I get suicidal.
Okay, and so that we would call an implosion. So if you look at panel number 6, which is the breakdown, breakthrough, some people explode, some people implode. And in the case of BPD, borderline personality disorder, I think people kind of do both. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I can fly into a rage too, but never at her. I'm too afraid of her. But behind the scenes.
Okay, so then the rage would then be projected onto who?
Husband, boyfriend, self, and mostly self, because that's when I'll get suicidal or I'll want to do something to myself or, do something impulsive.
Okay, and that's the self-harm because, you see, in this case, you can't really tell the person who's not esteeming you or not unconditionally loving you, or at least even conditionally loving you in a fair way, and certainly acknowledging your worth. What happens, you can't really tell them how you're feeling, correct? Because they're not empathic by virtue of their injury. They're self-involved, and so they're not concerned with how it makes you feel. They're concerned with their own feelings, which leaves you only two pathways, right? Implode or explode. Okay, so
right, but now that I understand what's happening, then now I can rationalize. I mean, it's going to be a training process, I think, but I think now that I understand what's happening and that I cannot get that love no matter how hard I try,
right,
I'm going to have to just divorce my family. And the worst part is my father is, I don't know really what he is, but he is her, like she's the narcissist, so she's made him everything because he pleases her in every level, and to the point he kind of abandoned the children almost.
So in some sense, I see. So so he's been her supplier, so much so that he has nothing left to give the children, right? That's
right.
pretty much what's happening. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute, because divorcing the family, that's a pretty big deal. And I know I've spoken on this before, and it's a radical decision. I don't recommend that people just casually divorce their family. Sometimes I suggest that they have a very modified contact, minimal modified contact that involves a lot of boundaries up, a lot of conversations that are not intimate, kind of like, how's the movie that you saw the other night? What do you think of, the weather today? And I call them object-oriented type questions because they don't involve the feelings. And so with people who've been injured, it's best not to involve feelings, because when you're involving feelings with a borderline or a narcissist, you're bound to hit a minefield, and it will be explosion and implosion time. So in terms of the family, if absolutely necessary, like in the case of the patient that I was talking about, if absolutely necessary, if it's a choice between life and death, you have to choose life. And if that means for you to cut your family off, then that's what it means for you. I think that in most cases it can be modified to very minimal contact: birthdays, Christmas, New Year, Hanukkah, cards, quick emails, and
I need to ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to set up just a little bit of the scenario of how the family dynamic works around people pleasing, where mother's the narcissist, father's her source, and he rolls over. He'll do anything to make her happy because the explosion is too great. So now she tells me that he doesn't want to really come see me. Sometimes I get to get him away from her alone. And she tells me now he doesn't want to come see you. He's just been doing it just to hurt me.
Yes.
And then I talked to my dad about it tonight, and he's like, I don't know if we have a secure line or not. I should talk to you in private about this. But then he goes, forget it. I'll just tell you. And he said he just has to please her. So he tells her and acts like he doesn't want to come see me so that she doesn't get jealous and upset. And I don't know how to take that. I'm just like, that's abandonment.
That's the best he can do.
He's walking a huge tightrope. He's in the middle.
Very much so. And, you know, this is not an uncommon dynamics, and it makes for secrecy, as you're describing, and the loyalties are all over the place. And understand that his loyalty, his main loyalty, is to her, because in his mind she is his lifeline, not you. She is his lifeline,
and he has to live with her.
He has to live with her. And so I think what he wants is he wants a relationship with you. He wants a relationship with her, and she is basically blackmailing him into having him.
How about the words emotional terrorist?
Yeah, I like it. Emotional terrorist.
We've even done a show. We've done a show on emotional bullying, but emotional terrorist will work.
Yeah, that's right. And so now you have choices, okay? So you can understand that your parents have never gone through therapy. They're injured people. Yes, they have choices, but you know, when your choices are unconscious choices, they're not really powerfully clear choices. So this is who and what your father and mother became as a result of their injuries, and now you have a choice. Your father is kind of pulling you aside and saying, hey, honey, I do want to communicate with you. It's our secret. Please don't tell Mom, because she'll have, you know, her emotions will hit the fan. So what do you want to do with that?
Well, I need to know, I'm trying to get well.
Okay.
So I'm learning quickly from your system. It's amazing. And all the years, this is what people with my injury and illness need. Because not a lot of therapists out there, but these keep us on the couch forever. I want to get on your couch and then get off. And so now I need to know, am I people-pleasing my dad if I go along with this? Because don't I have to stop?
Okay. So no. Pull back for a moment, and let's start with you and your needs. Would you like to have a relationship with your father? Does it serve you?
Very much.
Okay, so then this is the only way you can have a relationship with your father. So it's not about pleasing your father. It's really about you're having a relationship with your father so that you can be more pleased than less pleased. Because I think the less pleased would be not having a relationship with your father, correct?
Yeah, that would just be brutal.
Okay, so don't think of it that way. Don't think that you're being pathological by having a relationship with your father, because everything comes from our consciousness. And when your consciousness is in the consciousness of connection, you want to connect, and there's just a tiny little pathway to connect with him, albeit it's not the healthiest way. That's what you've got. So if it feels better for you to have it than not have it, then that's a free choice that you have. Do you understand what I'm getting at here?
I think I do. Yes, I do. But a little bit of me feels angry at my dad, but then I have to realize that's his lifeline, that's his wife. I'm the child, and it's just always going to be this way because he refuses to acknowledge her illness. He just thinks it's the way she is. And
Right.
I try.
Yeah, and you have every right to be angry, because in the book I talk a lot about acts of omission versus acts of commission. So your mother's the committer, your father's the omitter, meaning that he's the passive one. He's the one that doesn't stand up for you, which is horrible, which understandably would make you very angry at him.
Mm-hmm.
But do you see?
But yet there's so much love there. I mean, I love him like I just do. And unconditionally, I guess is the best word, and my mother unconditionally, but to the point now where I just can't have anything to do with her. She's too evil. It's an evil thing now. It's I watched your show today on the covert narcissist. Now it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, I want you to see it from your needs point of view. If it feels better for you to have that relationship, then you have that relationship. If it feels horrible, unhealthy, if it's look at Okay, you asked me about panel number 7. Now we get into panel number 7 because you had a confusion and a question. So go ahead and ask it.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you're asking.
Oh, you said that you were on
Paradigm
panel,
shift.
Paradigm shift,
Oh,
which
right.
is panel 7. What was your question?
I'm not quite understanding in the process of healing what that means.
Okay, so paradigm shift simply means that your cracked lens of perception, which is the wounded self, starts to clear. That energy, that perception of I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, whatever lies have been encoded into you, that begins to clear out as a process of reprocessing your feelings around your parents, around the injuries from childhood. And in that paradigm shift, there's a reshuffling of boundaries, okay? And so in the reshuffling, you have to understand that if you look at panel number 7, Walt, if you put that up on the
It's been
board.
on off and on periodically during the show.
Thank you. Okay. See, I don't
And
get
those
to
of
see
you that are
that.
listening, you can go to drjudywtf.com and see not only the mind map, but an exclamation of all the panels.
So panel number 7 is really a metaphor for interconnection. Okay, interconnection on many levels, mind, body, and soul, interconnection with other people. And in that particular chapter of the book, I talk about vampiring. And what is vampiring? Vampiring is when you interconnect with another person, and by the end of that experience, you feel that you're less than rather than more than.
We talked a lot about that last week with our caller.
Yes, and so when you get in relationship with your father, either you're going to feel that 1 + 1 is less than 2, or you're going to feel that 1 + 1 is some kind of an addition to you, or at least 2. And I mean at least 2 in that there are really, no big winners or losers. So you go to the market, you get a loaf of bread, you pay $3-4. I know there's inflation, maybe $5 for the loaf of bread,
Wow.
right? If it's Ezekiel bread or something like that. And then nobody wins. No, I mean, you get the bread and they get the money, and it's a 1 + 1 = 2 situation. Now, in the case of people pleasers, why they bleed out is because they keep giving. They keep pumping the system, and the narcissist is literally bleeding them out and vampiring them out. And then at the end of that dynamics, it's not 1 + 1 = 2 or more than 2. It's 1 + 1 is -2. Understood?
Yeah.
It's -2.
Yeah, I might be feeling that way. But as I get more perception to what's been going on, how I've been behaving and what I've been acting like, and what, I understand their injury, and that this is generational, that comes from their generation and their generation, which is why we're all here, for awareness. But
Right.
I'm starting to feel, as I get more healthy, is that the word, more healthy, healthier?
Yeah.
That the more I'm around my dad, the more uncomfortable I'm becoming around him, because I'm realizing just how, not healthy he is.
Well,
So, and I think that love that I thought was so amazing is really not so amazing, and really just part of the borderline disease. So it's going to probably work itself out to where I just do that very minimal thing with him, I guess.
yeah, it's going to be a very minimal thing. And I think that, maybe it's not, I don't think it's a good idea for you to cut off totally your relationship with your father. It doesn't sound like it's going to serve you. I don't think it's
Why
really...
do I get so nervous around him now? Because I know everything that's going on in my mind and what I do. And so now I literally get a sick stomach when I go to get him.
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry.
She feels
I
sick to her
literally
stomach
get
when
a
she goes
sick
and hangs out with
stomach
her
when I go
dad.
to pick him up.
Yeah.
And while I'm with him for this 5-hour period.
Well,
like father-daughter there.
I think that it's because you're becoming aware, you're reading all this material, and it's definitely, the book, the mind map system is geared to shake people up, because what we want to do is we want to shake you out of your old system and shake you into a paradigm shift so that you abandon what didn't work. And I think you're sort of trying to renegotiate things now. So I'm wanting to lend you a perspective on this, whereby you could see your injured father, how he's really a hostage in this whole situation. He's not getting therapy. He's never going to heal. So now you have a choice: have a father or not have a father. And so what do you want to do with this?
And then the risk of having my father, like she'll break down sometimes and accuse me of being his mistress, or, we have to just be so careful, walk on eggshells galore.
That's the eggshells. Right.
Yeah.
That's our narcissistic show we did a couple years ago, Walking on Eggshells.
Well, my mom is borderline plus narcissistic, so she's got the both of them.
Yeah.
Plus perfectionism, which now turned into hoarding.
Hoarding. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I wish your parents sought therapy before they had you. That's always my wish. My wish is that all parents clean up their mental health before they have children, because it's really important that we not pass on our dis-ease. And I want to emphasize dis-ease, not disease, like in genetic encoded, you're diseased. Okay, this is not a disease. People have asked me on the YouTube.
The dis-ease too, please.
Yeah, the dis-ease. Okay, so disease is something that is like a virus or something genetically whatever encoded in there. And here we're talking about.
Don't we in reality kind of really get a disease because our brain gets broken, it doesn't process right?
Well, that's true. And that's where the mind and body are so interconnected, because once you're in that in that injured place, right, then a lot of neurochemistry, biochemistry takes place, and a lot of neural pathways start to go in different directions. And I'm not a brain scientist, but if you look into the work of Dr. Alan Shore and Dr. Daniel Siegel, there's a lot of work on neural pathways and attachment theory, and how important it is to interconnect, and how important it is to have relationships, because it's the relationships that keep us sane. It's the eye contact and the skin contact and the empathy. It's back to unconditional love, okay, which is the most powerful healing force on the planet. I'll just boil down to empathy. When you talk to somebody and they're considering you and you're important to them, and they're not there to manipulate you, they're not there to gain anything. They're only there because they're there in the service of helping you become a better person. I mean, isn't that the ultimate service that you can offer another human being?
Yes, it is. It truly is. Yeah. So, well, unless you have any more questions for me, I don't want to take up any more time, but I really appreciate it, and looking forward to walking through the healing process now. And I know it's a journey, but I think it's better to be moving forward and understanding of the dysfunction that borderlines create in their life, which truly that's what it is. We don't do it knowingly, but.
And don't forget, this is not a lifelong label. It's not like you're a borderline, like, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is an elephant. There's no such thing in actuality. We define these labels based on patterns that we're seeing. So this is a description of a dysfunctional pattern, and a description of what happens when people are injured this particular way. And that's how we choose to label it. And again, I'm a systems thinker. I want you to be a systems thinker. So as the system starts shifting, which is panel number 7, it's a paradigm shift, because the cracked lens of perception, which is the old self that believes that you're worthless, that you're only valuable if you please, and on and on and on, that has to be shattered.
Right.
Okay.
And something better will come along, guaranteed. Sheila, thanks so much for calling, being a part of our show, and getting on the couch. And we'll look forward to hearing more about your progress.
All right. And thank you both again.
Hey,
You're amazing.
Thanks so much for calling.
Thank
God
you,
bless.
and for your beautiful letter. I really, really appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you, Dr.
God
Judy.
bless.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go. A borderline people pleaser.
Well, very painful.
It's
and
very
again,
painful.
It's not a disease.
It's a dis-ease.
Mm-hmm. And there are organic causes for mental unhealth. And that's not what we're referring to. We're referring to people who have been wounded in the areas of neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, smothering, verbal abuse, okay? And these types of abuse definitely impact the way the brain functions. It impacts the way the neurotransmitters transmit, and the mind and the body are absolutely interconnected. And so when things don't go well, the biochemistry doesn't go well, and the emotions go awry, and things start breaking down into chaos.
Yes, it does. We got a few more minutes, and there's some ways that we can actually stop being a people pleaser. One of them is when someone says jump, don't just automatically respond with how high. I mean, you have yourself to deal with. Next is, and this is important, learn to say no. Sure, it feels good to do a good deed, but it may not feel so wonderful when you resisted the heavy eyelids in the second for the second and lost of the, basically they're implying that if you lose a lot of sleep, right? Mm-hmm. You can say yes to something and it's a big commitment and you pay a heavy price for it because you've really taken care of somebody else's needs at the expense of your own. Say how you feel, not what you think someone wants to say. Wants what you to say. So in other words, you need to be yourself and realize that if you're true to yourself, then that pays off big.
And don't forget that if you're in a horrible dynamic like Sheila's father's in, then it's there's a price tag to be paid if you say how you feel. Because if you're in that hostage situation, that doesn't fly very well, does it?
No, it doesn't. Another one is stop saying sorry. There's also many things not to be sorry for, like asking someone to hold the elevator, not being able to locate your purse while the taxi driver waits for the fare and such. But, you're important and you don't need to apologize for everything. I get that a lot. Stop wanting to be loved by everyone. We've talked about that one a lot already. Make room in your schedule for yourself, right? You need some me time. People pleasers need it more than anybody. Mm-hmm. And there comes a time, again, we talk about vampiring. You're so drained physically, emotionally, maybe financially, that you really do need time to recharge and regroup.
Well,
Otherwise,
I'm thinking about, I'm sorry to interrupt, I'm thinking about Amy, our caller from last week, who's out $100,000 because she was pleasing her drug addict husband.
And the whole family.
Yeah. And everybody, the entourage.
Yes,
right.
He came with an entourage, and she realized that the payoff wasn't worth it. No. Be yourself, not a robot reflecting the needs of the person in front of you. You need to start putting yourself first for a change. Stop doubting yourself, right? When you start putting less emphasis on what other people think of you and more energy in focusing on what you want and your dreams and your ambitions, you'll feel better. And haters are always going to hate, so you can't please them. Practice tough love. James Dobson is real notorious for saying that love must be tough. You can't fight everyone's battles for them or be in their live-in, unpaid maid, chef, servant, or so quit letting people take advantage of your kindness and trust what they can do and will look out for themselves. You are not a doormat.
And just one other thing I want to add. Be a semi-permeable membrane. Remember Biology 101, the cells, the permeable membranes where everything goes through, the non-permeable membranes where nothing goes through, and the semi-permeable membrane is the selective membrane. So if you think of it from a biological model, the non-permeable membrane dies because no nutrients come in. The permeable membrane dies also because everything comes in, good, bad, okay? The semi-permeable membrane is what is the suggested way to be in the world because you want to be selective. You want to let in the good, you want to keep out the bad, and you want to be flexible because let's say something bad is coming at you. Well, in that moment, you may need to shut down and in that moment be non-permeable, but you can't stay in that state because you'll die. Emotionally, literally, it's a death.
And a couple more, and then we got to move on to our song. Stop being afraid. Fear of letting their friends and family down, fear of making a decision lest it go the wrong way. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Don't let fear get its sharp talons inside you. And lastly, don't dwell on things. Stop lying awake at night worrying if your coworker took offense to that joke or that you told about, or being messy or mentally or analyzing if you laughed was real or fake. It's a waste of life. Again, I know there's other things to talk about. People pleasers can overanalyze everything, and you just have to, roll with it and go with it.
Yeah, so I think this is going to conclude our series on people pleasing, although I think every episode we talk about really somehow this dynamic will just come into to
it'll
play.
Sneak in.
Yeah.
So now we are going to do our song, Shrink That Tune, where we take a popular song. I'm going to read the lyrics, and then Dr. Judy is going to interpret it from her psychological mind map perspective. And then, of course, we're going to close out the show. This one is actually another song entitled People Pleaser, and this one's by Andy Allo, A-L-L-O. Yeah, I do what it do. So consumed with being nice that I forget to live my life. Such a people pleaser now I see I wasted so much time. Yes, like me, but they expect me to be there at the drop of a dime well. I changed my mind.
Okay, so he's realizing that he's a people pleaser, but now he's understanding that it's been a waste of his time. Panel 7, vampiring, doesn't quite work. Yes, now they like me, but now there's a price tag to be had here. So, now they expect. Okay, there's the expectancy.
They anticipate it. And then the chorus. I used to be a people pleaser, but I had a change of mind. I used to be a midnight teaser. Now I just want to take my time. So obsessed with holding on that I forgot to just let go. That's a great line. Mm-hmm. Listening to abusive speech instead of letting the feeling show. And I'm so tired of dealing with these guys that all they do is take, from their rations to their reactions. You and I both know it's fake.
So he's not living life. He's not just letting go and enjoying. And I think it speaks to the fake self here. Instead of I'm so tired of dealing with these guys, all they do is take. Okay, so there's the vampiring effect, and he's aware that not only are they fake, he's fake too, because it's not genuine.
He's not his real self.
Right.
And then, of course, I used to be a people pleaser, but I had a change of mind. I used to be a midnight teaser. Now I just want to take my time. So concerned with giving all I had and more times 4. And I am not the one who stands outside when they have locked the door, because this is mine and every other man who dares to make a stand. There's a time to raise your voice and a time to raise your hands.
So there he is trying to figure out boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. There's a time to lock the door, which is what I was talking about, close the permeability of the membrane, and then, time to set limits, right? Raise your hand, and definitely have more of an exchange of just letting the feelings in also. So he's trying to figure out the boundaries here. And taking a stand.
And boundaries are so important in the chorus. Mm-hmm. I used to be a people pleaser, but I had a change of mind. I used to be a midnight teaser. Now I just want to take my time. People pleaser, midnight teaser. So that is our show. That's our series on people pleasing. If you want to write us, which a lot of you have been doing, you certainly can, or have an idea for a show, which the last couple have been fabulous, you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com. You can catch us on Stitcher, iTunes, of course, iHeartRadio, here at UBNradio.com. And, of course, lots of you are watching and signing in and subscribing on YouTube, and we appreciate all the subscriptions and all the amazing comments.
And just to remind people that we have a wonderful staff of people who work on a sliding scale fee basis, and if you can't afford to work with me, everybody is trained in the mind map system, and they're all very compassionate, intelligent people who are very focused in getting you from the wounds of childhood through the process of dismantling them and then morphing out and paradigm shifting into health.
And you can also check out the Psychological Healing Center on your iPhone, because there's an app on the iPhone for that, which will has a blog and obviously our episodes and excerpts from Dr. Judy's book, which you can get at Amazon, either on Kindle or in paperback, which is Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And we're going to be explaining a little bit more about healing global disconnect.
And I just wanted to say one more thing. We are giving free 15-minute consultations. So my staff and myself are available to talk to. And if you'd like to connect with anyone on the staff, you're free to do that and ask away with questions. And we're welcoming people to contact us, leave us your telephone number, your email, and so on. And then somebody from the team will contact you and answer any further questions that you have about the mind map therapy.
Because we really want you to realize that you aren't responsible for part one of your life, but you can take control and have a far better part two than you possibly could imagine. And that's what we do in a rather rapid rate. So thanks so much. That's our show. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, with Dr. Judy Rosenberg, with Dr. Judy WTF for What the Freud. Until next time, take care, everyone. And here's our song.